Hello, and welcome to the Consider This channel. This is Chapter 15 of Evidence of Soul by Sharon Patrice. Consider this. Reproduction of most living formats involves a female and a male of the same species, each contributing genetic material in the form of an egg, from the female and a sperm, from the male to create a continuation of their particular life form. The vast majority of animal species reproduce this way. Females of some species, however, are able to produce eggs, containing all the genetic material necessary for reproduction. What's more, species like banana slugs, as an example, change their sex depending on their environment. Snails are among the many other creatures that can, and do, change their sex. Slipper limpets, a type of snail, are also hermaphrodites, giving them the experience of beginning their lives as male, changing their course of necessity into female as they grow. This, for the snail and other creatures, is not a lifestyle choice, but a determined set of DNA rules in order to give that particular species the best chance of survival, in order to continue their genetic line. Trees and plants, on the other hand, rely on busy flying insects for their reproduction via pollination. Pollination is the process by which pollen, from the male part of a flower, the anther, is transferred to the female part, the stigma, of the same or another flower, leading to fertilization and seed production. To put it simply, a flower's brightly colored petals and aroma is a natural attraction to insects. The insect arrives on the flower to collect nectar, which is a blissfully sweet liquid that insects love to drink. The happily feeding insect rubs against the male sexual organ, the anthers, in the center of the flower, which in turn rub pollen onto the insect. Having fed off the nectar, the insect is then attracted to another flower. It now has the pollen adhered to its body which, while on the next flower, transfers it to the female stigma. It is through this time-honored way, in the world of flora, that the fusion of DNA between male and female is continued. If there is no fertilization, there will be no seed. Very occasionally some plants will produce unfertilized seeds. The seed, if unfertilized, falls to the ground and is watered by the rain. It produces roots and also grows upright toward the sun. It will no doubt be a healthy plant and will do its part in the ecosystem of planet Earth, but it will be infertile. It will not be able to pass on its DNA. Only a fertilized seed will grow, thrive, and produce its same. Evolution is a miraculous thing. It turned non-living matter into a self-replicating living consciousness. Evolution is what separates you and I from bacteria. It is this evolution that has produced differing ways of self-organization and reproduction. If we believe in the dual construction of life, as in a physical body and an energy we name soul, spirit, or self, we must ask ourselves why we do not consider all life forms to have a soul. Could it be that, for example, us humans have evolved in a particular direction with 2 legs, 2 arms, 1 head, and a soul, born and developed from a DNA consciousness that can act as a lone life force once the flesh body has deceased, but, as another example, the mushroom did not? Yet, both humans and mushrooms descend from the same distant ancestor, Luca. It had always puzzled me as to why evolution dictates 2 sexes of each species is now needed to reproduce when the single-celled life form would simply split in 2. Indeed, it perplexed me to the extent that I started to search for answers. It is owing to that research this book was written. Consider this. Electrical signals first appeared in life forms around 700 million years ago. We are also aware that around that time, planet Earth was thrown into an enormous dark freeze for millions of years, owing to accumulated volcanic activity. We only need remember the activity of the underwater Hunga Tonga volcano, spewing out magma producing extraordinary columns of ash, with ocean water vapor, causing volcanic cloud lit by concentric rings of lightning, that flashed a mind-blowing 192,000 times over an 11-hour period, and that was just one volcano. It's exhausting to just think about it. Can you imagine the scene that brought Earth into a dark glaciation with extraordinary lightning coming up from the oceans and land crust? Would it be too much of a stretch to envisage some lightning-produced plasma becoming Dr. Massimo Teodorani's living sentient plasma? The very plasma that forms helical structures that rapidly evolve into a double helix, identical to that which characterizes DNA, and which shows a self-organizing exceptional ability. Could Teodorani's intelligent plasma hypothesis be what brought DNA onto the RNA scene? A fusion of the living single-celled RNA life with an electrical DNA life form. Could this be why 700 million years ago life began to show signs of change, signs of electrical impulse and multicellular life forms? As theories go, it's certainly a possibility, and one that should not be overlooked. A fertilization of two forms of compatible life, RNA and DNA. RNA for the physical proprieties and DNA bringing the electro-impulse structure, combining in a complete genetic structure to pass on self. I do not conceptualize that DNA evolved from RNA. If that were so, we, and all other living multicellular forms would not need both to live and reproduce self. Today, life forms have both RNA and DNA, and as time passed this unique structure of life evolved, and outshone the original RNA life forms that had been around for billions of years, and within just 700 million years, the now double life force fast-tracked itself into the mind-blowing, amazingly diverse forms we see today. If we are on the right track, and there is every reason to believe we are, or at least looking in the right direction, then we should also consider the evolution of soul. As the physical body of the first RNA-DNA life emerged and evolved to suit its particular environmental needs, so too must have the soul self. As an example, our friend the mushroom, while it has both RNA and DNA along with electroimpulses and a history of evolution, it cannot have a soul as we perceive the human soul to be. Why? Because it does not have a language. It does not hunt for its food or even pop down to the local supermarket. It has not evolved in the same direction as us humans. That is not to say its electro-self does not continue after death, but what that self looks like, or is, cannot be imagined, at this point, by us humans. We have so much to learn. Does the human soul really exist? If we equate soul as self, then yes, of course it does. Having looked at all sides, all aspects of our quest to find evidence of soul, we have arrived at a point where we have discovered solid scientific information, and realities too, at the very least, give us the foundations of how the first living matter came from non-living matter. The conjoining of the first solid living matter dictated through RNA and conscious matter brought about by electrical pulses and DNA, perhaps around 700,000 million years ago, would give us an roundabout era when the fertilization of soul and flesh occurred. The soul appears, on evidence, to be as much a part of the development of the Homo sapien as the physical aspect of our evolution. Does the soul live on after the death of the flesh body? Some might say that as the flesh body is dying, its electrical pulses slow to a stop. Therefore the consciousness stops, and death occurs. In medical terms this is true, but when we realize the significant difference between consciousness and subconsciousness, the difference between evolving RNA physical matter and the latter evolving DNA electrical impulse matter, joined together within one body, we must leave the medical community there, and our heartfelt thanks are with them, for dealing with things they are best qualified to deal with. The human body, made up of around 60% water with a ratio of somewhere near 0.15% of both sodium and chloride, and a whole load of other chemicals, minerals, and atoms, take care of our solid physical body matter. Lipids, naturally still have a broad range of functions, including supporting cells by aiding in essential functions, protecting nerve cells, and much more. These are the understandings, so far gathered by us humans, and we are discovering new things every day, in respect of the physical body. The subconsciousness, the self or soul, is a completely different matter, literally. So, what about NDE, near-death experience? I have researched this phenomenon until I could absorb no more, but always with an open mind, and it appears to me to suggest the soul or self does, in fact and without doubt, move on from the death of the flesh body. Where it goes, I cannot say, and neither can any search engine, but what I can tell you is that plasma is the most common state of matter in the universe. Whether that plasma is dusty or living sentient, we do not know. It does seem to be that when the consciousness of the living body no longer functions, and death occurs, the subconsciousness of self moves on, and on some odd occasions comes back to its physical body, once that body has been resuscitated. These NDE stories appear to bear witness to the journey of the subconsciousness after the death of the living flesh, but also bear witness to the dual nature of life, physical matter and electrical matter. Reincarnation may well be a thing, but not, I believe, in the way we imagine. When a human fertilized egg, for example, first shows actions of consciousness, at around 24 to 28 weeks of gestation, it is obviously a new naturally formed life, complete with a growing subconsciousness. Could that growing subconsciousness be an old soul coming back? Perhaps or perhaps not. Us humans are, quite simply, a product of evolution, and the growing subconsciousness must also be a product of same. For my money, the bets on an energy or soul, who had lost its partnership with living flesh, under traumatized circumstances, needing to tell its story, and so temporarily hijacks the new life, in order to let go of its trauma. In a way you could say the young child is possessed by the soul of another or is channeling the soul of another, perhaps through telepathic means, until its story is told. When its story has been relayed, it leaves the new life and soul to grow on as usual. This has been brought to our attention, as a possibility, through the numerous stories from all around the world, where a child, who is thought to be the reincarnation of a traumatized soul, gradually forgets the painful memories leading to a previous death expressed, when young, and goes on to live a happy, healthy existence. The language of telepathy. Telepathy appears not to communicate through electrical impulse or flesh matter, it appears to be a part of self that has evolved. It is not our consciousness, but rather our subconsciousness, that seems to hold us, our personality, our self, and all that it has stored from the consciousness, and its interpretation of day-to-day life, when its flesh body lived. It is possible, very possible indeed, that the vastly, as yet non-understood language of telepathy, is in fact the language, or communicative value, of soul. And the curious case of the royal oak. These souls have a reason for staying around, that much is obvious, as we must assume all ghosts' visitations or apparitions do. Until we discover more about the soul's journey after death, it is somewhat impossible to understand what keeps the soul earthbound. We might evaluate. The soul has a need to get their story told, but there is no viable evidence to support this theory, just a supposition. There is so much more we need to research, but for now our quest to find evidence of soul, I believe, is complete. This is the end of chapter 15 and the end of Evidence of Soul. Before you go, may I ask you to please hit that subscribe button, like and share. Thank you.